Hello and welcome to Everyday Passions, Heart-Centered Conversations. How confident are you, ladies, with your money management strategies? How well are you navigating the complexities of the financial world? My guest, Debra L. Morrison, has spent over 40 years honing her skills, and I invite you to join us for this conversation. Welcome to Everyday Passions, Heart-Centered Conversations, Deborah.
Thank you, Yvonne. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. And congratulations. Congratulations on being named the 2021 Celebrate You Woman of the Year for your impact and influence within the Celebrate You Women Embracing Wellness movement. Oh,
Thank you
there
so
you are. Bring it closer to you. Let us see. Oh, that's beautiful.
much. How's that, huh?
Fabulous. And for the benefit of our viewers and our guests, this event was coordinated by my colleagues Lawana Bradford and Barbara Beckley, and this was streamed on E360 TV in March of 2022. So I'd love to share with you a little bit about Debra, and then I'm going to ask her to share something personal with you, something you may not know about her. Debra L. Morrison is a retired certified financial planner. She's an international transformational speaker, a certified grief coach, and best-selling author. Debra is touching lives and making a difference by shifting the narrative around finances and providing women with the foundation and tools needed to captain their own financial futures. Very powerful. So, Deborah, before we go further, would you share something personal with us so that we can, maybe something that not everybody knows?
Well, I always enjoy listening to other people tell a story of what has been propelling them. And yet, my interest in money matters stemmed back to when I was a child, Yvonne, and I was taken to the New York Stock Exchange by my aunt. And I was completely mesmerized. I was like looking through that plexiglass, and I saw all of those white men, unfortunately, down there. And it was in the day of paper tickets, and they were tossing around paper and shouting and waving their arms. And I said to myself, silently, I'm sure, I don't know if I'm going to be down there waving in these tickets, but there's something about that energy that I am going to pursue. And it then evolved to having appreciation for my grandfather handing me certificates of stock, as he did each of my siblings, for some college funding. And I knew there was something to that piece of paper. There was more than paper. And the power of money was not lost on me. We were raised in a humble 100-acre beef cattle farm. We didn't have a lot of cash. My mother made our clothes. We ate from the farm. And when I saw the energy about money, it piqued my interest such that I studied it in college. And then I went and wanted to learn investments post haste. And of course, no one was putting money into a woman in 1978. So they said, why don't you go ahead and sell life insurance? Because they thought I'd be out the door. Right. And in fact, many people are out the door because life insurance sales is a most difficult profession. Well, at age 21, I led the agency in sales for the next 2 years. And why did I do that? When I learned about the power of life insurance, keeping families together, keeping businesses intact at the premature death of their owner, I was completely energized and said, we need this kind of stability and we need this kind of financial underpinning because money is a tool that many of us can use for many different options. I just want to make sure we have some in our tool belt.
Wow. I cannot imagine, although I'm kind of visualizing you right there in the New York Stock Exchange as a child and feeling that energy, because that had to have made a significant impression on you. Who takes a child to the New York Stock Exchange, you know?
Exactly. Well, my aunt well, of course, she was the daughter of my grandfather, who was a stock market investor in the Great Depression. And so I think she knew that, we certainly had stock in our, my grandfather's estate. And I think that she might have surmised. And boy, I tell you, it was a life changer for me.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes, indeed.
Now, Deborah, this show, Everyday Passion, seeks to explore and identify one of my guests' burning passions and how they've used that passion to influence the lives of others. Now, you're a TEDx speaker who has been featured on CNN, ABC, among other networks, quoted in the Wall Street Journal, Money Magazine, Reader's Digest, Ladies' Home Journal, and other publications. Now, at this point in your life, how would you describe your passion and how do you help others?
Wow. Well, first of all, Yvonne, it was child labor, the 44 years. And I have been passionate about sharing the good news, right? I was raised Christian fundamentalism. We were taught to witness the impact of Jesus in our lives and so forth. And I just always thought it was a darn good idea to share that which was working for me. And when I latched on to the energy of money and just could envision how many more options, Yvonne, money can buy, I became completely an evangelist around, especially empowering women around their money, seeing that the socialization for older women, anybody north of 55, has been so horrible that I found there was a void and a gap into which many well-intending women were falling. And then I happened to be a partner in a billion-dollar firm right across the river from Manhattan. And when 9/11 struck our nation and our world, we decided as a firm to give pro bono service to widows and widowers. And I was the partner selected to do that. And I gave pro bono service to 7 widows, a widower, and a 12-year-old orphan. I want to tell you how palpable it was, the stress of that whole event, and yet the assurance that I was able to give people because of largely the fund. But when I sat across the table or at the edge of a boardroom table with a new widow from a horrific tragedy with often young kids, and I was able to say, after having done a plan, financially, this can work for you. And to see the tears shoot out of their eyes and just land onto the table. They had challenges aplenty, and yet not to have to worry around money or have to move instantly was completely life-giving to these widows. And I transferred that. And then I became a certified grief coach. And so I've dealt with hundreds, if not thousands, of widowed people since. And there's not a one of them, Yvonne, that said, and I sold life insurance for 21 years, not a one of them that said, oh, take that money. I don't need that.
Mm-hmm.
Many too many people did not have the money. And again, don't confuse this with me thinking that money buys happiness, because I don't believe that. And further, if money can solve it, I think it's not a problem. See, anybody that's had a life-threatening illness or a diagnosis or a premature death or something horrific, my richest clients would have given groups of zeros for another day, another dance with their partner, another outing with their grandchild. So I want to maintain the focus that money is a tool, and it gives us and it buys us choices for certain things in life. And it also enables us to give to others as their needs arise. Because I think particularly as women, we are outwardly focused, right? It's like women
Mm-hmm.
serve. It's almost hardwired in us, right? And
Yep.
so to that extent, I want us to bolster our own money confidence and get footholds into our next investment steps and be conscious about our money, so that not only are our needs met financially and we don't have to be concerned about that, but there's extra then that we can give to the causes that we're passionate about. And that is a great feeling of empowerment.
Absolutely. And I love you speak about the energy of money several times. And I just want to clarify for our listeners, you just did it. Actually, you did it a moment ago. Did you know many times, depending on our culture, we grew up with the idea that money is evil. And sometimes people distort what the Bible says. The Bible didn't say money is evil. Um, it's totally distorted that way. But what you said a moment ago is what is so important. Money gives choices. Having the ability to know that your basic needs are taken care of, and also know that you can help someone
That's right.
who is in need, whether it's an organized cause or a friend, a neighbor, whatever it is, does not only gives empowerment, but it gives a sense of deep satisfaction,
Yes, it
knowing that you're able to show compassion, because compassion is being able to take action on what you see is missing. So thank you for that, Deborah.
And that was a powerful statement, Yvonne. I appreciate your sharing that. It is a passion within us to reach beyond ourselves. Very few people I've met that don't believe in something larger than themselves. And very few people don't have their peripheral vision wide open to needs. I mean, of course, the war in Ukraine is a current need. And so many of us have researched to find the best organization with the cheapest expenses to get our money to the source. And yet I want to turn the mirror on ourselves, Yvonne, because so many women feel that, oh, that's the man's job, or, my husband or my partner will take care of it. And so I get that from a socialization standpoint. We weren't trained so well, and yet money is our responsibility. So I say, listen, you can live your whole life without broccoli or skydiving, but you cannot live your whole life without money. So let's put the focus on life skills. Let's bring money into our periphery of what we're hardwired with as women in particular. I think we're hardwired, Yvonne, with common sense. And money is just common sense. The squirrels in the Northeast, they run around in August with their pouch, their nuts in their cheeks and so forth, because they know they're going to be hungry in November and December when there's typically snow. And I want us to come down to that real level.
Hmm.
If the pandemic caught you up short, let that be the last time you're caught up short. If inflation has caused you a big crimp in your lifestyle and your budgeting, I want that to be the last time. I want us to be sick and tired of being forced into a state of concern about our own livelihood, financing ourselves. And I'll go one step further. If we're mothers, there's a tendency to give loans, which turn into gifts to our kids. And the best gift we can give any kid that we might have or adopt is to say, son, daughter, I'm working now with a financial coach. I'm reading about the importance of me taking care of my financial needs. And so rather than give you that as I have done in the past, I'm going to circle in around my own financial stability. And that, in essence, is going to give you a gift with many, many returns. And when we focus it that way, hey, I am focused on my needs. It costs us all money to live. Let's figure out where we've been spending money. Discern what of those levers can be pulled in different ways. Less money here, more money here. Make certain that our money is following our mission, right? And then we are the driver of our own financial car. We're not in a driverless car, right? I think that's the
So
thing. It's not a choice of, are you going to be great at it or are you going to make a misstep? We're all going to make missteps in investing. Warren Buffett has made billion-dollar missteps. So the fact is, investing is an endeavor that involves some risk taking, but the risk of the stock market is also the currency for the reward of the stock market. And it's because women haven't been taught about that, but rather just been the victims of listening and looking at pundits with their veins popping, saying the market is crashing. The clear inference is, don't just sit there, stupid. Do something. And then people push the sell button and run and say, I'll never do that again. I'll go back to my certificates of depreciation. And if we didn't have inflation and we didn't have taxes, you could sit in your depreciation certificates, but you cannot, because we have raging inflation now and we'll always have a certain level of inflation, and we have income taxes. And so we look back over 80 years and stocks have historically outperformed every other asset class, including bonds, over 80 years. Now, I have no idea what the future will hold. But Mark Twain
mhm.
said, I don't know if history will repeat itself, but it'll surely rhyme. So let's get over our myopia about judging the stock market in milliseconds, and let's look at the trajectory over decades, because even if you have a terminal diagnosis, I expect you'll live, because many of us do outlive those, for 20, 30, 40 years out. And so this is the responsibility that we have as women, to look ahead, especially with longevity increasing, and say we will be responsible for our own money and our own money security at some point in our life. It's just a matter of how long. So why wait for that to happen and then be slapped upside the head and try to figure out how to do it then?
Wow. So your message basically in all of what you said is the importance of women taking back control. And if they haven't started yet, is to find a way, educate themselves on how to take the control so that they're not basically the victims of someone else's theories or anything as you mentioned, but the pundits as you mentioned, but rather they're making informed decisions. So with that in mind, Deborah, having worked with hundreds of women, do you have a story which illustrates the impact that you have had on guiding women to financial success? You mentioned one earlier about what happened after 9/11. You mentioned a couple. Is there anything else that any woman who is listening and wondering is, could I do this? Could I take control? Is there anything you could share?
Yes, there are, just hundreds pop in. I mean, I had a gal, a single woman. She handed me her financials, and there was some Pepsi stock. And as she handed it to me, she like looked at the balance. Like, it's surprising to me. People gather these documents, haven't even looked at them. She hands them to me like I'm handing in homework. And then she looks at the balance. She says, $67,000. She said, that must be a typo. I said, no, it's not. $67,000. And she goes, I didn't know it was that much. So it was a dividend reinvestment program, Yvonne. And she had put in like $100 a month when she was in college because she enjoyed Pepsi. She thought, why not? It's turned into $66,000. I had another client who had inherited some Exxon stock, and she was giving me all of her financials and all the dats, the deeds. And she says to me, oh, and then I have some Exxon stock. I said, well, how many shares do you have? And so she says, and she told me the number of shares. And I didn't know that today's close on Exxon, but I had an idea. And I said, I said, not for nothing, but that's about $87,000. No, she said. Sure enough, it was. So the issue is these systematic investments over time compound into something that's mind-blowing. Compounding works 24/7. I want it to work for us, and the way to have it work for us is to have monies invested in the stock market so that base investment can earn dividends. And then the next base investment that we put in on a systematic savings plan earns dividends, and all of it compounds, right? Because if we don't have monies invested in the stock market, then compounding is working against us, because the prices of everything, forgetting this little blip in higher inflation, over decades is going to go up and up. And the taxes are uncertain. So the issue is we are losing ground by saying, I'll wait until later. I'll wait until I'm sure. Well, you're never going to be sure. So let that moniker go. I am sure of one thing. The best time to have invested is like when we would have put on an oak tree 25 years ago. And the second best time is the today. And let's get on it. One more instance. I had a widow come into my office with $1 million. And she hands over the check, and she says, now you can shop the entire world, right, for CD rates. And I said, yes. Okay, she says, I want you to buy me 10 $100,000 CDs. And I pushed the check back across the table. She was like 58. I pushed the check back across the table. And I said, no, Mrs. X, I can, and I won't. Now, no broker was going to do that, I can assure you. But as a planner, I said, no, I won't. And she looked stunned. And I said, I will do it under one condition. You come back after a week or two. You bring me a car dealer, a realtor, a nursing home, a hospital, a florist that will give you today's prices in writing, guaranteed 5, 10, and 15 years down the road. But if you can't do that, we need to invest in a vehicle that at least has a history of performing in a way that will enable us to buy goods and services into the future at those inflated prices. Because I think to send money ahead, Yvonne, if it's not going to buy the goods and services, is malpractice for investment advisors, quite frankly. And I will not be party to that. Like people in the olden days, they had like, oh, you have to have $1 million when you retire. And people at banks were giving away toasters if you opened up an IRA with them. And I was just like, I just said, like I was knocking on the desk. I was just like, $1 million at retirement is like an inconceivable amount to so many people. I said, you know what will bread cost? And then I'm going to work back to determine what present money do I need to put away at a presumed earned return to at least buy bread. And I hope a whole lot more. I hope that as women, we can progress into whatever next stage, call it retirement, call it what you wish, and at least maintain our current standard of living. And the only way to do that is to put monies away now, especially in our retirement plans, into some type of stock investment whose duration should be no less than 7 years. I don't want anybody putting money in the stock market for the short term, but those retirement monies really need to be invested in the US or the international stock market, in my humble opinion.
And I'm sure your humble opinion has carried a lot of weight over the years, as you have proven to us. So thank you for that. We are almost out of time, but there's something I want to ask you about.
Go ahead.
You have authored 3 books. There's Mrs. Morrison's Dictionary of Useful Financial Investment Terms.
Yes.
There's Common Sense Money Guide for Women. And My Husband Died, Now What? A Widow's Guide to Grief Recovery and Smart Financial Decisions. I'm particularly fascinated by that last one.
Yes.
What prompted you to write that book, Debra?
Well, I had an earlier book called Women Navigating, Financial Lifeline. And then when I engaged and got certified as a certified grief coach, I learned a lot about grief. And I thought, boy, this is an interesting combination. You're a certified financial planner, certified grief coach. And so, Yvonne, half of the book is grief recovery, and half of the book is financial pitfalls to avoid. And it's a beautiful dovetail of those 2 disciplines, because widowed people can pick up that book, and it applies to widowers as well. Widowed people can pick up that book and find themselves in some of those pages. I've gotten hundreds of responses back. Oh my God, you nailed it there, right? Now, I'll be happy to take anybody's responses that they feel I can make that book better, and I will. And yet this is a book that gives women the bolstering, if you will, the empathy with what they have now just endured, and the confidence that they can do this thing. It's all about we can do it, women. That's my umbrella, because we can do it, and yet never alone. I don't want a woman standing in her own tears at 2 a.m. in the morning or lying in her own tears without a resource. And that book has become more and more of a resource for widowed folks. And many married friends of mine, when it came out, they said, I want to buy that book now so that I'm prepared. I don't make those mistakes. We talk about the widow tax and a bunch of pitfalls, a bunch of axioms that don't make a nickel's worth of sense, but somehow they're fed into our psyche and we couldn't get rid of them. But this is a very, very easy to follow. My Husband Died, Now What? A very easy chapter by chapter. And then my friends say, I'm going to send this to the next widowed person I know instead of flowers. And I said, please do. And people say, well, when should I send it? I said, immediately when you hear about it, because you have no right to dictate when a widow is going to have cleaned her house 4 times and is climbing the walls. Give it to her, allow her to let it sit on her table until she's ready. And that gives her the power to bring this information into herself in a manner and on the timeline that she feels confident, because we want to emote, Yvonne, and then we want to be intellectual. And when they 2 smash together and collide, you mess up the whole emoting process and you mess up the intellect. So I want us to emote fully. If you need to set a timer, and then if you're not done, you hit snooze, and you get that crying and that frustration, that anger, and what all else happens at grieving. And then we turn to the intellect. and we go back and forth, 1 foot in each circle. And that's how we heal. We've got to feel to heal. And once we heal that emotional wound and that life-altering comeuppance, now we can take control of our finances in a way that's going to empower us. And basically, I invite people to say, remember when everybody had those bracelets, what would Jesus do? What would Frank do? What would Frank say for you? Not to wallow, to move forward into your next chapter. I don't know what it is, but you do, and I want you to find it.
Oh my goodness. Deborah, as you were talking, I was thinking of cases that I've known of where, amidst their grief, widows were approached by people who had less than their best interests at heart, or
Right.
perhaps they thought they did,
Yep.
but it didn't turn out so well. And because of what you spoke about in the beginning, leaving finances to the husbands. So they know absolutely nothing about what's happening. And there's always a saying that when you're grieving, that's not the time to make decisions.
Yes.
But somehow that's when you're hounded by people who sometimes have not your best interest at heart. So I can see the value of a book like that.
Yes.
Being there for somebody to reach up, a woman to reach out and say, let me take a look at this. So-and-so has approached me, but let me take a look at what this book says, because my friend gave it to me and there has to be a reason why she did.
Yes. And Yvonne, I always advise people of any ilk to deal with this, a fee-only, a fiduciary financial planner. There's no sale of commissionable products, which really takes away that kind of bias, right? Mm-hmm. And I have personally unwound 3 unsuitable variable annuities sold to widows. I had to go through the Department of Insurance, and I was sure that on one of them, the agent had made $68,000 commission. He had gone to church with this widow and her husband when they were married for 40 years. This is no small matter. And when we are widowed, we are culpable and susceptible. There are people with their antennas up, because what's more obvious, and they're trained in this, they bring the life insurance death proceeds and they say, now, Betty, wouldn't you like to be safe with your money? What's Betty going to say? No, I'd like to climb up to the high dive and jump into a pool with a little water in it. Betty's shaken to her core. And they say, just sign this over and we'll buy you a variable annuity and it'll pay you a pittance per month for the rest of your life. And they walk out with a groups of zeros commission and an all expenses paid trip to a luxurious location. This is commission sales at its worst. Now, I did commission sales, but I had the ethics that I would never engage in an unsuitable sale. I'm one of a handful of people I've known in 40 years with that mentality. So fiduciary financial planner, NAPFA.org, National Association of Personal Financial Advisors.org is the start place to find one. And it doesn't matter if they're next to you, in the town next to you, or in your state. And when I was in practice, I had clients in 28 states. It's a matter of relating and being able to talk, Yvonne, and listen. And if you as a woman are seeking financial advice from someone who's not listening to you, move on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Deborah. So you have shared a lot, but there may be 1 or 2 tips or tactics or strategies that you'd like to share with us to bring our conversation to a conclusion. Would you do that, please?
Yes, I do have an axiom. Pay attention to your money and it will pay you back. And ultimately, we can do it, women. We had Financial Literacy Month just a few months ago, and I was railing against it because there's more evidence to show, Yvonne, that it's a lack of financial confidence, not a lack of financial knowledge, that has held too many women back. And so I do not like the idea of particularly white men saying all women need is to become financially literate. Oh, great. Like if you have another 80 years, I've spent 42 years. I'm not sure I'm financially literate. What women need are answers as they have the questions, and they need to choose a trustworthy professional that's going to speak to them the truths about money. I actually have a course called that, The Truths About Money. But if you pop to my website, womennavigatingfinances.com, there's a couple of checklists that I think will be pique your interest and perhaps expose some area of a person's financial life that they could shore up, because the last thing we want are financial surprises.
Deborah, thank you. Thank you so much. This is so meaningful, and I think so many women are going to see themselves in this, and saying to themselves, I need to take better control of my finances. Maybe I need to find someone like Deborah to assist me, because you just, and NAPF.org would
FA.
recommend FA,
NAPFA, National Social and
FA.org.
Personal Financial Advisors.org.
Okay, and I want to remember that you highly recommend working with a fee-paid fiduciary. Is that
Fee,
correct?
fee only, because there's something called fee based, and that's not good. Fee only. And the key word is fiduciary.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you so very much. And Deborah's website again is womennavigatingfinances.com. As she mentioned, she has some checklists there. We invite you to go over and claim one or two of those checklists so that you can educate yourself, empower yourself,
That's
and
right.
be able in a position to take control of your finances. Thank you, Deborah, for being here today. You have been shared amazing information, valuable information that many of us need to hear.
Sure.
And I thank you so much for being here. And for our wonderful guests, our wonderful viewers and listeners, we'll see you again next time.